All right, let's go ahead and get started. So my name is Andrew Fierova. I am an instructor with the North Carolina Youth Orchestra as well as the Brass Programs Coordinator. And this is our NCYO Backstage event talking about summer music festivals. So we have two objectives this morning. The first objective is to try and explain and help you understand what a summer music festival is. And the second objective is to really answer the question, should you do one? And we're going to do that in two parts. So the first part is going to be in this building. The second part is going to be in our building right next door. So the first part features three guests, and they're going to represent three different relationships with Summer Music Festival. The first guest is going to have the student perspective. The second guest is going to have the parent perspective. And the third guest is going to have the faculty and teacher perspective. We're going to do that in an interview sort of style up here, one at a time. And at the very end, we'll have an opportunity to ask some questions. We may do it up here. We might just do it individually. We'll kind of see how we'll feel that part out. The second part, as I said before, that's going to be next door, is where we have several representatives from summer music festivals that are here to talk to you a little bit. They have some literature for you. We have some other QR codes and things to take you to links for applications and to some other websites for people that weren't able to be here this morning. Any questions before we get started? All right. Let's welcome our first guest, Elena Gradus. Good morning, Elena.
Morning.
How are you doing?
I'm doing well. How are you?
I'm doing good. Thanks so much for doing this.
Yeah.
So, where do you go to school?
I go to Huff High School currently. I'm a junior, and I play French horn for their wind ensemble and mellophone for their marching band.
Fantastic. Awesome. So, what is a summer music festival to you, and what made you want to participate in one?
Well, during summer, it's kind of a bit of a drought for musical opportunities because everyone's on break. So music festivals are just a great time to either grow or stay stagnant. So these music festivals really bring out the best musicians, and that's just such a great opportunity to meet others and grow as a musician.
Perfect. Wow. So you chose growth.
Yes.
Awesome. What was the alternative? Was there anything else that you were considering over the course of the summer, or were you all in for a summer music festival?
Well, there's, of course, like everything else you want to do as a high school student. You want to find volunteer opportunities, maybe a summer job, or things like that. So there are some picking and choosings you might have to do, but music festivals are very much worth it.
Awesome. I love to hear that. So for the summer music festivals that you chose, did you have to audition for those?
So the ones that I chose, I did not have to, because the ones that I have continued to go to have been lower commitment just because of my busy summers, but they have all been equally helpful in different ways because they've been different formats too.
Awesome. Can you tell us which music festivals you decided to participate in?
I went to the UNC Greensboro Music Festival in July, and then I've gone there 2 years, the past two. And then this past year, I went to the North Carolina Youth Orchestra Summer Festival, which took place over like a weekend and some change.
Awesome. Good. And let's go ahead and tackle them independently. So at the UNCG one, where did you have to live?
So we lived in their dorm rooms. We took about 3 buildings, and there was one for girls, then a co-ed where it was split floors, so it was still separate, and then there was all male.
Awesome. And what did you feel like the social aspect was like specifically at the UNCG camp?
It was really great because they have chorus, they have piano, they have an orchestra, they have bands, so it's very, it brings everyone together. You get to have a lot of social time as well. You get to talk to other people during meal times. For dorm rooms, I've been put with people in the chorus program or piano, as well as then you get to also stay with your band because it's a specific schedule so that everyone can move around so that everything runs smoothly. So it's just overall, you get to talk to everyone, and it's very welcoming.
Awesome. You mentioned a couple different performing ensembles there, an orchestra and a band. How often did you perform in those groups while you were there?
We performed one show at UNC Greensboro. It was the culmination of what we had been working on all week. Took about maybe an hour to 2 hours because they had multiple ensembles perform. It was a mix of younger students and then older. I was put in the senior bands just because it's like high school, and then they also have middle school opportunities. It's very wide.
Very nice. Let's transition over to the Carolina Youth Orchestra Summer Festival. How was that one different from what you experienced at UNCG?
Well, UNCG, it was very much you stayed there. It was like you were sleeping there. It was eat, breathe, sleep this summer festival, while the North Carolina Youth Orchestra Summer Festival, it was more local for me, so I could commute within 5 minutes down the road. It started in the middle of the week instead, and it was definitely more intensive where it started, and then we had one performance towards the end. It was a different feel for sure, just because it was more just orchestra and band. Well, just orchestra, to be honest, but it was a smaller one, and it was still fun for sure.
Awesome. So that one you got to live at home, and because you were so close. But did anyone stay there, or did you feel like everybody left at home?
I'm pretty sure everyone commuted there.
Gotcha. So that's a commuting festival.
Definitely.
Perfect. So there's a couple different styles there. There's one where you can go and live there, and then there's another kind where you can just commute from home. So there's a couple different flavors. Did you have a preference for one or the other?
I really enjoyed the where you got to be a resident, just because you got the full experience, because at UNCG they had a bit of everything for them, and it really felt like not necessarily a music major where you had all these classes, but you really got to be in depth with all these different parts of being a musician, where they had a musicianship class, they had like specific meal times. It was all very it was all music. And I know of other music festivals where it's longer durations, so it's all music, not just going home, relaxing. It's just...
Yeah, of course. So there's multiple options here. So what did you feel the social aspect was like at your local one, the Carolina Youth Orchestra Summer Festival that takes place in Davidson? Was that different from how it kind of stacked up at UNCG, given that, right, you're living there, and the other one, you're commuting back and forth?
Exactly, yes. The North Carolina Youth Orchestra Summer Festival had more so it was people from all the Charlotte area. It was more so close because everyone was driving there, so you wouldn't have people from like other states, for example, trying to drive like hours for each day. So it was definitely a different mix of people from different counties, but on the smaller scale. It was great to talk to everyone. I've made connections that have carried over into the concert season and new friends. It's just for UNC Greensboro, it was like different states, different communities all over North Carolina. I met people from Raleigh. I have friends from Virginia from that. So it's just different perspectives for sure.
Totally different. Yeah, I really, really like that. So with the CYOSF one, how often did you perform with that festival?
We did one performance after everything. It was a culmination of everything we had worked on over those few days. It was pretty simple. It was a fun time, and yeah.
Awesome. So for our last couple of questions, can you describe for people what it feels like after you put in all of that work with all of those rehearsals, and then you finally get to that performance, and then you say goodbye to all of these friends, and then what is that experience like as it sort of comes to a close when you look at what it was like to participate over, in some cases, several weeks or even just a few days?
Well, it feels for a few days after the commuting, it was very much you have the concert and then you get to go home. So it was a little less like, oh, it's completely over. It felt like a hard stop almost, but you still got to go home. You got to practice still. You had these great memories. And then for UNC Greensboro, we spent a few hours before the concert packing and eating dinner. It was getting ready to leave, so it was like, oh shoot, it's slowly coming to an end because there's so many parents coming because there's almost like 600 kids I think there, so that was definitely, they have to work through all that and we have to follow, so it's just a bit slower, but you still come back with a great experience from both. It ends later for sure for the UNCG, so you drive home and it's like everything unwinding, so it's just different reflection periods for sure.
Awesome, fantastic. For our last question here, what would you want other students to know if they were considering applying to a festival for the first time?
So I haven't been to too many, so my experience is limited, but for what I've heard about other festivals, it's very much worth it. It depends. You really have to figure out how long you want to be on, because some people get homesick, and if you want to do the commuter, do you have that time and those resources? I recommend doing it for sure. It's just you find the one you want to do. If you're just starting out, maybe start with a smaller one like UNC Greensboro. It's great. It's social, and it's not as focused. It's still music focused, but it's not as intensive as what I've heard about, for example, Canon, where it's all music for like 3 straight weeks instead of 1 week. It just completely different commitments and experiences.
Awesome. Thank you so much, Elena. Thank you for sharing all your knowledge and experience. All right, for our next perspective, we have Ann Mitchell. Good morning, Ann.
Good morning, Andrew. How are you?
I'm doing good. How are you?
Doing well.
Awesome. So, are you a musician yourself?
I am
You
a
are.
musician.
Fantastic.
I am probably what you would say a lifelong musician that doesn't get paid. So I grew up in a very intense music state in Texas and decided I did not want to pursue music. So I went to college and took lessons. I did not do any summer music camps or festivals during high school or college. So some of my experience as a parent is brand new with figuring out festivals and camps and the like. But I do know music, so there you go.
Fantastic. So, how many children do you have, and how many of them are engaged in music?
I have 4 children, and all of them are engaged in music.
Wow. What instruments do they play?
So they all started out on piano. We felt like that was an important aspect to start with the basics of piano. My oldest, he plays trumpet. He is 17 and a junior at Huff High School. My second child, she plays flute. She's at Huff, a 9th grader. My third child plays violin and clarinet, and she's a 7th grader at Metrolina Regional Scholars Academy. And then I have a 5th grader who just started trombone, so that's also very exciting.
Awesome. And how many of your children have done summer music festivals before?
The older 3 have done some sort of camp or festival. Yeah.
If you can remember, which ones have they done?
Okay, well, so if I want to start with my oldest, Ben, the trumpet player, he has done Interlochen summer music camp in Michigan for 4 summers. He did 2 years of the intermediate program, which is 3 weeks, and then 2 years of the high school program, high school orchestra program, which was 6 weeks long. I believe that's all he has done, although he has applied to many other ones, so I do have knowledge of the application process for those. Yeah.
Perfect.
Sorry. My flute player, she has gone to the Atlanta Chamber Music Festival, which was a fabulous experience, and UNC Greensboro, and then Flute Fire, which is a camp in Dallas, which is where I'm from. And then my third child, she has done UNC Greensboro, and she's also done a violin camp, Mark O'Connor string camp here in Atlanta. So.
Awesome. You mentioned the application process. Can you tell us a little bit about what that application process was like for you from your perspective?
Sure. Does she want to come in? Okay. I'm sorry, say that one more time.
Oh, okay. You mentioned the application process earlier. Can you tell me a little bit about what that application was like from your perspective?
Sure. So several of those camps are not audition-based, like Elena was referring to. UNC Greensboro is not audition-based, so you don't have to send in anything in regards to your playing ability, which is awesome. It means it's accessible to anybody who wants to come. The audition-based ones, they usually list what they need to hear from you, and that can range from 1 or 2 pieces and scales to all the way to 10 orchestral excerpts and court concertos that are memorized. It can be a wide variety of things. So we have spent hours recording things and trying to hone those kind of skills, and then send those in and kind of hope that that's what they're looking for.
Yeah.
Yeah.
You mentioned earlier about some of the festivals that they had participated in, as well as how long they were. What's the longest duration that one of your children has what's the longest duration when your children has been gone for one of those festivals?
Sure. So the Interlochen Orchestral High School program is 6 weeks. And so Ben was gone for 2 summers for 6 weeks.
Yeah, so these are really, really big investments, not just for your kids, but also kind of for you. What's it like for your kid to be gone? That's almost the entire summer.
It definitely is almost the entire summer, especially when you account for kids that are involved in marching band or school that starts kind of early in August, because then it really is your whole summer. Quite frankly, it's been great. I have enjoyed having my child go away, not only to gain some independent skills, and find people to hang out with other than our own family, but for me as a parent, it's been really great to see that growth.
Yeah, so there's a lot of value in that experience. I find that to be a very supportive perspective. I'd be curious to know, what does being a supportive parent kind of mean to you, just sort of from your heart in the way that you think about what these experiences can mean to your children?
Well, that's a great question. I think from my perspective, and I'll speak for my husband as well, we want our children to kind of experience what it is to be immersed into something and how that could change the trajectory of their life, whether that means in a music camp or in, on a long-term volunteer opportunity or a engineering thing, whatever it could be. I just think it gives them the opportunity to really dive deep and see if that's what they're interested in. And if it's not, then they've still made friends and had positive learning experiences. So.
Yeah, and you feel like these festivals have provided that along the way.
Absolutely, absolutely.
That's great to hear. So for our last question, what would you want other parents to know about summer festivals who are considering having their child participate in one for the very first time?
Well, it definitely seems scary the first time you submit an application for a multi-week summer festival. And there's a lot of hesitation on finances and time and what it means to your family dynamic. And I think that's all personal decisions that you kind of have to decide for yourself. If you as a parent are ready, if your child is ready, and if your finances can allow for it, or if you can get scholarships.
Many of them offer scholarships.
Many of them
absolutely.
do. So I say go for it. See what the world is wide. See what's out there. See what your kid can do. That's my perspective on it. So yeah.
Yeah, awesome. Thank you so much, Anne.
You're welcome.
Our last guest from the faculty/teacher perspective is Alex Wilborn. I'm lucky to have Alex as a colleague both in the North Carolina Youth Orchestra as well as the Charlotte Symphony. He's a rock star trumpet player, an outstanding teacher, and a really, really good friend. Please welcome Alex. How you doing?
I just saw you last night.
I know, right? We were playing a show last night. Yeah, we see each other an awful lot. All right, Alex. So what is the Summer Music Festival from your perspective?
Well, so I think my perspective is interesting because I'm not a parent, but I did a lot of festivals growing up, and I'm now faculty at one. I think you probably want me to speak from a faculty perspective.
I think, yeah.
But, I mean, it's really interesting because I think it's really, what's fascinating from my experience in faculty at the former Eastern Music Festival, now we have the Eastern Festival of Music, which we'll talk about later, but I think the important perspective and the difference is, or to think about is, it's really cool as a faculty member to meet all of these young students who come from completely different backgrounds, who are very driven in their own way, and watching these people have to intermingle, and not have to, but also want to intermingle and learn, not just from me, but each other and all of the other faculty members there. I mean, I think the great thing about festivals, obviously for me as a faculty perspective, I get to play in an orchestra for 5 weeks and I get to do a bunch of teaching. And it's just, I think it's always really fun to impart whatever wisdom that you can for an individual and trying to meet them where they're at and figure out, well, why are you here at this festival? what are you trying to get out of it, and what can I do to help you achieve that goal in our case, 5 weeks.
Yeah, so definitely from the teacher perspective, this is difficult because for you, 5 weeks is not long.
Not at all.
Right, and trying to figure out how to help someone improve. But from a student perspective, oh my gosh, or even a parent perspective, right, this is an eternity. So it's interesting to hear that juxtaposition in terms of just perspective and what we're trying to do. So you're sort of describing a lot about how you've related to a music festival. If you could speak from the teacher perspective, why are these festivals important?
Well, from a teacher perspective, I think for me personally, I think it's super important to, it's this idea of mindset, right, versus growth versus fixed, right? So I think when you're in front of a student who you've never interacted with, or maybe the only interaction you've had is by listening to their tapes, you have to really learn on the spot how to meet them where they're at, and like think about like, well, this is the way that I normally teach something, or this is normally the way that I would approach a specific problem, and that might not actually work with this particular student. So it keeps you on your toes constantly. I've done things where it's like I've had to teach kids how to go through an embouchure change. I've had to, obviously teaching them the concept of good orchestral playing or just good trumpet playing in general. So that can be pretty vast.
Yeah. So you're giving some specifics about how you work with students. Could you talk a little bit about how that's different from maybe what they would be receiving during the entirety of their school year in band? Because one of the things I might think is, I'm already in band all school year. Why do I then need to spend more time during the summer? What makes what you're doing different from what they're receiving in band?
I think it's, Elena mentioned it's the idea of it being intensive, but I think also, when a student comes to me and like when I'm working with that particular student on X, Y, or Z, I think what's particularly fun about it and about that from a teacher's perspective is, so specifically, can you repeat the question?
Yeah, so you mentioned some things that you're trying to figure out, with the student.
Right.
What is it about those things that make that relationship with a student different from what they're going to be receiving throughout the year in band class?
Oh, I see. Well, I think it's a different level of commitment, I think those particular students, my perspective is that, when you're in your band class, like as someone who grew up in a small band, the attention that you're getting day in and day out is more spread out because of the amount of things that a band director or an orchestra teacher, et cetera, have to do. But from my perspective, I get to solely focus on being a better person, being a better musician, being like giving them specific attention to like any very specific issue that they may or may not have, or that they know or they don't know.
Yeah.
If that makes sense.
Absolutely, yeah. So you're talking a lot about teaching. Are there other responsibilities that a faculty member typically might have during a summer festival?
Well, in my experience, it's like at Eastern, I have to play in the orchestra every day. We do teaching throughout the day. We do performances. What I love about the festival that I'm a part of is that I think a lot of festivals, the teachers don't, not a lot, but some of the festivals I think the teachers don't actually, there's a lot of talking, but there's not a lot of like, let me demonstrate to you in real time what I do for a living. So it's like, at our festivals, it's like throughout the week, the students will be practicing, they'll be rehearsing, and then they'll play their concert. And then, of course, then Saturday night, it's like, okay, you guys did the work. Now you get to sit back and watch me sweat the hard solos, and that kind of stuff. So I think it's really important for the students to see that just because we, or in this case me, just because I'm a professional, doesn't mean that, it also means that like I have to put my money where my mouth is. If I'm telling a student to approach music in a certain way, I then have to go back and then demonstrate that myself. But also, I mean, I always viewed it as, I think it's super important to like attend rehearsals for the students. A lot of times these students don't get, particularly from an orchestral standpoint, they don't really get like direct feedback of like, hey, like you're behind on every entrance, or hey, you need to play that a little bit louder, et cetera, et cetera. So giving them in real time, not just you're playing too loud, but like very specific directives of like, this is how I would approach that if I was in your seat. And so you should try that and take what serves you and leave what doesn't.
Yeah, so you're actually going to their rehearsals, giving them feedback in rehearsals, and then you're seeing them in private lessons, opportunity to work on solos. They go back in the rehearsal space. They do what you ask. You give them feedback, and so you're stuck in this kind of this loop of excellence, I'll call it.
Yeah.
Right. Yeah, that's really, really interesting. Have you, in your experience as a player, ever had that happen outside of a professional orchestra or a summer music festival, where you've got your own teacher in a space talking to you, and then you go to that same teacher and then getting private instruction?
Oh, not at all. No, yeah. I don't think so. I think it's very, very specific. I mean, I think the way that I approach it as a faculty perspective is that I'm not just here for 5 weeks for my own glory. It's like the goal is I want to be able to impart whatever wisdom I can to these people. And what's great about the festival is that you're with all these students who are very dedicated. Like, there's no question of like they're there because from my perspective, it's like they've either paid to be there or they have merit scholarships and that kind of stuff. So there's an extra incentive for them to put their best foot forward. And it's so rewarding when students are willing to meet you halfway. And then because then you don't have to overextend. It's like, oh, you're giving me your best effort, so it would be a disservice for me to not give you that same level of effort. So not only does it make me a better musician and a person, I think, for these festivals, but it makes me a better teacher because these students, in a lot of ways, are challenging me. And I think that that's super important. I mean, I think it's having any sort of complex of you have the whole perspective of how things work. I don't think that that's super helpful, and I think it's great. It's great whenever those relationships can be symbiotic and learning from each other. I've learned so many things from the students that I've worked with, and I would hope that they've learned a fair bit of things from me too.
Yeah, awesome. Last couple of questions. I think this next one's particularly important, although I don't necessarily expect you to have all the answers. But would you speak to your experience about how summer festivals typically try and guarantee the safety of their participants while they're on campus or on site for a summer music festival, especially for those where we have students who live there?
Yeah, I mean, I think probably the best way to describe that is the difference between maybe high school and college and adult kind of things. In my experiences, this past summer, I taught at the Oklahoma Summer Arts Institute, and it's only high school students who live in Oklahoma. So it's a very, very specific schedule. I mean, we have proctors. You've got basically RA. It's like a college experience, right? Where it's there are constantly people there making sure that the students are safe. And of course, when you're with the students, it is ultimately your responsibility to keep them safe. So I don't think that there's a single faculty member who teaches festivals to young students, whether it be high school students or even college students, who aren't, at least in some way, shape, or form, cognizant of the fact that when they're with you, you are you're their responsibility. You have to make sure that they are safe. And but also, it's when you're working with college students, it's when they're not around you. At the end of the day, it's everyone understands their various parameters, right? Of just okay, lights out by 11 or quiet hours or whatever. But I think they're always safe. I attended so many festivals growing up in high school and in college, and at no point, even when I was a ninth grader, 10th grader, at no point did I ever go to a music festival and not feel safe or taken care of or know that there were safety guideline and measures in place. So that when my parents knew that even though that they couldn't actively see me, they knew that I was safe and that I was being cared for in whatever way that would mean in the moment.
Yeah, I think it's worth noting that there's a little bit of a parental feeling, I think, that teachers feel for their own students. And I think it's born out of the fact that we were you in our past, right? And we were treated a particular way, whether that be for good or for bad, and that inspires, teachers just generally to try and do the best for our students. So I think it's important to kind of note that there's a lot of care generally from these private instructors. For our last question, what would you want other students to know if they were considering applying to a festival for the very first time?
So my first trumpet teacher, his name was Charlie Decker. I studied with Charlie for 9 years, going into 8th grade all the way until he retired at the end of my 4th year of my undergrad. One of the things that he said to me that I say to every one of my students, and Ann's oldest, Ben, is one of my students, and he hears me say this all the time, is that the worst that can happen is they tell you no. There is no reason for you to not stick your neck out there, because at the end of the day, you're not going to bat 1,000. It doesn't work that way. Nothing in life works that way. But the fact, if you're willing to say, I want to do this, give it your best shot, even if it doesn't work out in your favor, there are always things to learn from that experience. And I think we all can agree in a lot of ways. Frankly, I think there's more to learn from failure than success. And so I would say don't be afraid of failure. I would say dive headfirst into it.
Awesome. Love it. Yeah. Thank you so much, Alex.
Cool. Thanks, Andrew.